James had been assigned to the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Promise for 3 standard months when he first met Aliana. She wasn't human. That much was obvious from the moment she glided into the observation deck, her crystalline form refracting, the starlight into dancing patterns across the walls. The Luminari were a species of pure energy, beings who maintained physical forms through concentrated willpower and exotic matter matrices. Aliana served as the cultural liaison between her people and the human delegation, a role that required her to spend considerable time explaining the nuances of Luminari philosophy to curious and often confused human officers. "Lieutenant Chen," she said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, "you seem troubled." James looked up from his datapad where he'd been reviewing first contact protocols for the 15th time. "Just trying to understand your people's concept of desire sharing. The translation matrix keeps giving me contradictory definitions." Aliana settled into a form that resembled sitting, though she had no need for the chair beneath her. "It is difficult to translate. For my people, desire is not merely wanting something. It is the fundamental force that shapes our existence. We literally become what we desire most." "That sounds intense," James said, setting down his datapad. "So if you desire to be, say, a better diplomat, you actually transform into one?" "In a manner of speaking, yes. Our forms are malleable. Our essence responds to our deepest wishes." She tilted her head, a gesture she'd learned from observing humans. "What about your species? What do humans desire?" James laughed. "That's a loaded question. Depends on the human. Some want power, some want knowledge, some just want a quiet life. And you, James Chen, what do you desire?" The question caught him off guard. They'd worked together for weeks discussing treaties and cultural exchanges, but their conversations had never turned personal. He considered giving a diplomatic answer. Something about peace between their species or advancing humanity's understanding of the cosmos. Instead, perhaps emboldened by the late hour and the vast emptiness of space stretching beyond the viewports, he grinned and said, "You." The silence that followed was absolute. Aliana's form flickered, colors shifting rapidly through her crystalline structure, blue to violet to white to something James had no name for. He immediately regretted his attempt at humor. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "That was inappropriate." "I was joking. You were not," Aliana interrupted, her voice suddenly intense. "I can sense the quantum resonance of truth. Humans lie frequently, but in that moment some part of you meant it." James felt his face burning. Look, you're fascinating, and you've been incredibly patient with all my questions, and yes, I find you attractive in ways I don't fully understand, but I know that's impossible. Our species are completely incompatible." "I shouldn't have said anything." Aliana stood, her form expanding slightly. "You misunderstand the significance of what you've done. In my culture, when someone expresses such a desire, when it carries even a fragment of genuine truth, we have a sacred obligation to address it." "Address it how?" "By removing all barriers between us." Before James could respond, Aliana's crystalline form began to shimmer and dissolve. He jumped to his feet, alarmed. "Wait, what are you doing?" "You said you desired me." "The Luminari do not make such statements lightly, and we do not ignore them when others do. If there is even a possibility of truth in your words, then I must remove the barriers that separate us." "Aliana, stop. I don't want you to—" But she was already changing. Her energy form collapsed inward, compressing, restructuring. James watched in horror and fascination as she underwent a transformation that should have been impossible. The Luminari were energy beings. They didn't have biological forms, yet Aliana was creating one. "This is madness," James whispered. "This could kill you." "Perhaps." Aliana's voice came from the shifting mass of light and matter. "But you do not understand what you've awakened in me. For 3 months I have observed your species. I have watched you laugh at things that are not humorous, become emotional over fictional narratives, and persist in endeavors that any logical species would abandon. You are inefficient, contradictory, and utterly fascinating. So you're doing this because you find humans interesting? I am doing this because when you said you desired me, I realized that I have desired you as well. I have desired to understand what it means to be human, to experience sensation rather than simply observing it, to know limitation and vulnerability and all the strange things that make your species so impossibly resilient." The light began to coalesce into a humanoid shape, Arms, legs, a torso, a face that was both alien and hauntingly familiar. When the transformation completed, Aliana stood before him in a biological form, gasping for air, a sensation she'd never experienced. "I can feel," she whispered, wonder in her voice. She looked at her hands, flexing fingers that were solid and real. "I can feel everything. The temperature, the texture of the deck plating beneath my feet, the weight of this form." She looked up at James and he saw tears forming in her newly created eyes. "Is this what you experience constantly?" James approached slowly, still not quite believing what he was witnessing. Are you okay? Can you change back?" "Eventually, yes. But not for some time. The transformation requires immense energy, and I must stabilize this form first." She smiled, an expression that looked unpracticed but genuine. "You seem distressed. Do you not desire this after all?" "I'm terrified," James admitted. "You've just fundamentally altered your existence because of something I said as a half-joke. The responsibility of that is overwhelming." Aliana reached out and touched his face, her hand trembling. "Then you must understand something about the Luminari, James Chen. We do not make changes we do not wish to make. You did not force this. You simply illuminated a desire I did not know I possessed." She paused, still learning to coordinate breathing and speaking. "For my people, desire is not weakness. It is the force that drives evolution, that pushes us beyond what we are into what we might become." "And what have you become?" "Something new. Something neither fully Luminari nor human, but perhaps something better. A bridge between our kinds." She laughed, a sound that was awkward and beautiful. "Your people have a saying, yes? Humanity, fuck yeah. It means that humans persist, adapt, and overcome impossible odds through sheer stubborn determination." James couldn't help but smile. "That's a rough translation, but essentially yes. Then perhaps now I understand it. Because I have done something impossible. I have chosen limitation over omnipotence, vulnerability over invincibility, all for the chance to truly understand one stubborn, impossible human who makes jokes at inappropriate moments." James took her hand, feeling the warmth of newly formed flesh. "I still think you're insane. Perhaps. But I have learned from the best." Aliana squeezed his hand, still marveling at the sensation. "Now you must teach me everything about being human, starting with why you all consume so much caffeinated beverages and complain about needing them." As they stood together in the observation deck, surrounded by stars and infinite possibility, James realized that humanity's greatest export might not be technology or art or philosophy. It might simply be the audacious belief that any barrier, even between species as different as energy beings and humans, could be overcome with enough desire and reckless courage. That was the human way. And now it was Aliana's way too. Andy.